Hello, Wired Souls. If you've gone gluten-free for your celiac disease and you still feel foggy, distracted, like your brain just won't cooperate, you're in the right place. Because here's something nobody tells you when you get a celiac diagnosis. The damage gluten does to your gut doesn't stay in your gut. It can reach all the way to your focus, your memory, your ability to just sit down and get something done. And if you've also been diagnosed with ADHD, or you've always wondered if you might have it, this connection might be the missing piece. So let's get into it. Out of every autoimmune condition linked to ADHD, celiac has some of the strongest evidence behind it. This isn't a maybe. This isn't a small study somebody's trying to make a big deal out of. A study of over 112,000 people found that celiac disease patients had a 75% higher risk of also having ADHD compared to people without celiac. And in kids specifically, the numbers are just as striking. One study found that 16% of pediatric celiac patients also had ADHD. Compare that to the general population, where it's around 9.4%. That's almost double. A review that looked across 23 separate studies on this exact connection found that more than half of them showed a positive link between celiac and ADHD. And most of those positive findings published in just the last 5 years, which tells you something. The more researchers look at this, the more the connection holds up. So the question isn't really, is this real? It's, why does this happen? And that's what I want to walk you through. Here's the chain of events, start to finish. It starts with your immune system. If you have celiac disease, your body treats gluten like a threat. Every time you eat it, your immune system attacks the lining of your small intestine. Now, your small intestine isn't just a tube. It's covered in these tiny finger-like projections called villi. And villi are what actually absorb nutrients from your food into your bloodstream. When your immune system keeps attacking that lining, those villi get damaged, flattened, less effective, sometimes a lot less effective. And here's where it becomes a brain problem, not just a gut problem. Damaged villi mean you can't absorb nutrients properly anymore. And there are 3 nutrients in particular that take a hit: zinc, iron, and B vitamins. These aren't random nutrients. They are the actual building blocks your brain uses to make dopamine. Dopamine is the chemical behind focus, motivation, and your ability to follow through on things, which, if you know anything about ADHD, is basically the whole ballgame. So think about what's happening here. Cut off the supply, and dopamine production stalls. Stall the dopamine, and your focus stalls right along with it. You're not imagining the brain fog. Your gut is, in a very literal sense, leaving your brain short on what it needs to function. But that's only half the story, because there's a second pathway, and it's just as important. Remember the vagus nerve? It's the longest nerve in your body, and it runs in a direct line from your gut straight to your brain. Think of it like a dedicated phone line between the two. When your gut is inflamed, which, if you have untreated or accidentally exposed celiac, it absolutely is, that inflammation doesn't just sit there. It travels up that nerve, straight to your brain. So you've got 2 things happening at once. Your brain is running low on the materials it needs, and at the same time, it's getting hit with inflammation signals traveling straight from your gut. That's not one small thing making focus a little harder. That's 2 separate systems working against you simultaneously. And this is why so many people with celiac describe their brain fog as something different from just being tired. It's not the same as a bad night's sleep. It's a specific kind of fuzzy, can't quite grab a thought feeling. Now you know why. Okay, so here's a question you're probably already asking. If gluten is doing all this, does going gluten-free fix it? For people with celiac celiac disease specifically, the answer based on the research is generally yes, at least partially. When the gut lining heals and those villi recover, nutrient absorption improves, inflammation calms down, and for a lot of people, some of that brain fog lifts along with it. But I want to be really careful here because this is the part where things get misunderstood online a lot. If you don't have celiac disease, if you just have ADHD, and someone tells you, cut out gluten and you'll focus better, the evidence for that is much, much weaker. The research connecting gluten and ADHD symptoms is specifically about people who have celiac disease, where gluten is actively damaging their gut. It is not the same as saying gluten is bad for everyone's focus. There's a big difference between this nutrient pathway is broken because of an autoimmune attack and cutting out a food group will fix your attention. The first one has real science behind it. The second one is mostly internet wellness culture borrowing legitimate research and stretching it way past what it actually says. So, if you don't have celiac, going gluten-free isn't likely to do much for your ADHD specifically. If you do have celiac, it's not just a diet trend for you, it's actual medical treatment, and it may have a real effect on your focus as a side benefit of healing your gut. That distinction matters. Please don't let anyone tell you to cut out a major food group based on a video like this if you haven't actually been diagnosed with celiac. Get tested first. Which brings me to the practical part. What do you actually do with all this? First, if you have ADHD and you also have ongoing GI symptoms, even mild ones, ask your doctor about celiac testing. Bloating, fatigue, irregular digestion, even just chronic low energy, these get brushed off a lot, especially in women, especially when ADHD is already in the picture, and everything gets blamed on that instead. Second, if you already have a celiac diagnosis and you're strictly gluten-free but still struggling with focus, ask about nutrient testing specifically. Zinc, iron, and B12 levels. Healing the gut lining takes time, and you may still be catching up on nutrient stores even after going gluten-free. This is something that can be measured, not just guessed at. Third, give it time. Gut healing isn't instant. The villi take months to recover, sometimes longer depending on how much damage was there to begin with. If you went gluten-free expecting your focus to improve overnight and it didn't, that doesn't mean the connection isn't real. It might just mean you're still in the healing window. And fourth, track your patterns. Did your focus noticeably shift around the time you went gluten-free? Did accidental gluten exposure ever coincide with a bad brain fog day? That kind of pattern is useful information, both for you and for any doctor you bring it to. Here's what I want you to walk away with. If you have celiac and ADHD, you are not dealing with two unrelated problems that happen to be inconvenient at the same time. There is a real, researched pathway connecting what's happening in your gut to what's happening in your focus. Your gut isn't just reacting to food. In a very real sense, it's been part of the reason your brain has been struggling. That's not an excuse. It's an explanation. And there's a difference. Hopefully this helped explain something you've been feeling but couldn't quite put into words. If you've got celiac and ADHD, or you're wondering if you might, drop it in the comments. I want to know how many of us are dealing with this exact combination. Next up in this series, we're going to look at Hashimoto's. And honestly, the thyroid connection might surprise you even more than this one did. I'm going to go interrogate every snack in my pantry now. Like, subscribe, share this with someone who needs it. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!